What do I need to say? One of those mornings where kind of everything works nicely together, and you're happy that the dog wakes you up at 5:10. So I made a film last night, and loads of rain, loads of midges, kind of not great, and kind of took a quick few shots, but then those rainy conditions have conspired to create that amazing mist. So Eilean, Donan Castle, just picking up a little bit of the early morning sun on the side. And the other thing that's working in my favour is the tide is in high. This is a really famous shot. It's probably overdone, but I couldn't miss the opportunity with that kind of mist in the background. But one of the things you'll see here quite a lot is when the tide's out, this is not the best foreground. So you get some shots with kind of awful foreground, and if you turn up and the tide's out, you can't necessarily wait around for 6 hours for it to come in, but it's in, and it's working in my favour. So what I'm doing is trying to get a shot with the castle, but using these rocks in the foreground here. There's a bit of foreground interest, and then obviously got the mist in the background. So the kind of image, the castle's going to be a silhouette, because what I'm interested in is kind of that beautiful kind of valley mist. So got the image set up, kind of exposing for the mist. So the castle will kind of feature, but there won't be any detail in it, if that makes sense. So just going to kind of work on that now. Kind of make my focus over there, and just get that. I'm on f11, and I'm actually bracketing just to give myself a bit of leeway. But as the sun's coming a little bit higher, not sure if you can see, I don't want to look at it, but the sun is just cresting that peak there, and there's just, oh, there we go, but just cresting that peak, and it's just putting a little bit of light on the castle, which will kind of help with the image. I'm also focus stacking, so I've focused on these rocks, and then I've focused on the castle, then I've focused on the mountains in the distance. So I've got three kind of areas of focus. So I'm going to work on that as the sun's coming up, and I'll come back to you in a minute. So sun's come up a bit, and it's actually kind of now shining on the front of my camera, so I probably need to move position, but I just wanted to show you kind of the kind of perfect example of the rule of thirds, and I'll do that by kind of showing in the back of the camera. Hopefully you can kind of see this, but this rock here, that is nicely illuminated, is down on my kind of bottom right rule of thirds, and the castle's on my top left rule of thirds, but also I've got kind of those other rocks running along kind of rule of thirds, and then the castle and the Loch side walk along the rule of thirds. So the image is nicely split into kind of three sections. There's the kind of foreground interest, the distance is rule of thirds, and then I've got like the sea water or loch water in my middle rule of thirds. But there's enough interest there with ripples and reflections not to make it a kind of a disappointing composition. It also kind of means that it's not. I did a piece about visual separation, so I'm creating enough depth in this image by using these rocks in the foreground and the castle in the distance. But there's enough in between the two of them, and enough interest in between the two of them to create that image, kind of impression of depth in the image. So, but pretty cool conditions. I've dropped in my polarizer just to kind of add some blueness in the sky and take a little bit of the sheen off the water. So might look to move now because the sun's starting to kind of hit the front element of the camera and making me squint. So I've come down the road a bit away from Eilean, Donan Castle, so heading south along Loch Duich, and there's this kind of old chapel down here, kind of looking into Shield Bridge area. So the sun is not in a great place to photograph that way at the minute. So I'm just taking a few shots over there, and I'm glad the guy in the Tesco van has disappeared, because he was sat in the lay-by there with his radio blaring. I don't know why do people do that? Come to a beautiful place like this, just sit in the van with the radio on full blast, the windows open, a bit weird. But anyway, so I'm taking a shot across here with the bridge, looking across the loch. The sun is just coming onto this peak. Some nice clouds here. I'll probably, so that camper van is in my shot, and you know, again, full disclosure, I'll edit that out because it's kind of, I don't mind there being cars on the bridge, but the camper van in the shot is a bit annoying. So what I'm doing is I've got this, because there's lovely heather in bloom here, lovely kind of lavender purples of the heather. So I've got that in the foreground, and then the sweep of the bridge and the loch. So the sweep of the bridge leads round into this view. So on F11, focusing over on the far side of the loch, actually, because although this is interesting, I don't need it too sharp because it's, you know, it's heather. You know, it's meant to be a bit kind of organic, for want of a better phrase. So quite pleased with that. The blue sky is helped with a few bits of cloud in it, so I'm gonna work on that, and then I'm going to try and look that way because it's a great view, but I need to work out how to avoid getting the sun just straight into the lens. But we'll work on it. Look at all this mist rising. Just amazing conditions. So, well, regular viewers might recognise, but also recognise this spot. So I was here just over 12 months ago, but the tide was much lower. So I'm on the kind of the south side of Loch Duich. So Eilean Donan Castle is up that way, and Fort William, Tindrum, Bridge of Orkney is that way. But the tide is in proper high. I think it's just after high tide. And I'm just looking across, look at that. The amazing clouds just on this peak. Don't know what the peak is called. If I kind of find it when I get home, I'll put the detail in here or somewhere. But I'm going for a classic just reflection shot. So I'm just looking across using the high tide, and I'll brighten that up a bit for you. Just looking at getting a kind of a reflection of the mountain and the clouds. I'm not going for any kind of other distractions at the moment. So I'm on F4 because I don't really need a lot of depth because I'm just going for the reflection. F4, just focused over on the shoreline, so I get the kind of focus on that point. And then I've got the composition where I'm just seeing the mountain and the clouds. I've got my polarizer in because it puts a nice bit of blue in the sky and takes some of the sheen off the water. But the sun is working its way around. The midges are kind of not great, but there's a little bit of a wind kind of hopefully keeping them at bay. But the water is so clear. The water is amazingly clear. So I'm just going to wait for that cloud to develop. And as the tide goes out a little bit, I might use this fence as a bit of a line. I've not got much space. The last time I was here, tide was quite far out, and I was able to use the fence because I was down here on the shore. But I've not got much space to work with because there's literally a road just behind me there. So I'm a bit kind of pushed up against the road. But yeah, it's kind of incredible scene so far. So I'm going to take a panorama down the loch. And what people would traditionally do if they're taking a panorama, you've got your camera in landscape, and then obviously you just kind of change the orientation like that. But you can use an L-bracket. I've been using an L-bracket for quite a long time, but I always kind of forget to put it on, so I just kind of unclip my L-bracket, clip my L-bracket in that way, and camera's sorted in the position I want it to be sorted. Need to tighten that up a bit though because it's coming loose, but these things do. And then, hey presto, Bob's your uncle. Don't forget though, if you've got your polarizer in and you switch orientation, you need to kind of realign your polarizer just by kind of looking through and twisting the polarizer, and you can see the effect there. So I've got the effect now. So don't forget, like with filters and polarizers, if you switch your camera, you've got to reorientate the filters and polarizer. So I'm just going to take a panorama, not a massive one, but just enough to get kind of this tree, these buildings, the kind of heading out towards Eilean Donan Castle, and then some of this mountaining. And there's a heron flying above me. Seaweed slippy. So I think I'm done here. It's kind of warm now, so the midges are coming out kind of proper for a feast for their breakfast. There's also the sun's getting a bit too harsh. So still absolutely beautiful. But I'm going to head back home and get some breakfast. If I see anything on the way home, I'll stop and take some images. But other than that, see you next time.